What's going on, everyone? Jeremy here from the Quarter. We've got a lot of new information on what happened down in Florida yesterday. Earlier reports were that this individual happened to be a pro-Palestine individual, anti-Trump individual, and it is now being reported that that is not true, and several pictures seem to at least question that. That doesn't necessarily mean anything, given the way the media lies about everything. But, you know, he has been pictured in a Make America Great Again hat. That doesn't mean anything. That could mean he was like some sort of infiltrator, stuff like that. But there's a lot more information out today. And at least I will say, you know, these social media posts that appear to be pro-Palestine, you know, I don't know. We're going to have to look at it. But let's look at this. As it says today, I will say this. Leave a like on the video if you think this is just shaping up to be a little too perfect. We're going to get into all the new details. Given the way that YouTube treats these videos, I'm really glad I have a sponsor. And for this video, it's private internet access. Shout out to this video's sponsor, Private Internet Access. Look, if you aren't using a VPN yet, you're completely missing out, and Private Internet Access is the one I use on all of my devices. If you've been following the news, you see that censorship, websites, apps are getting shut down in certain countries, all sorts of craziness. Well, a VPN helps you never have to worry about that. Private Internet Access also protects you from the prying eyes of hackers, internet service providers, and others that can view your personal data. Perhaps also just as importantly, Private Internet Access allows you to access region-restricted content from all over the world. Streaming services like Netflix, Amazon Prime, and more have different library options based on where you're located, and some shows simply cannot be accessed if you're not in the target location. Happens to me all the time. Many sports events also have regional blackouts. Well, VPNs can be a convenient way to make sure you're getting the content that you're paying for. Private Internet Access also allows you to protect an unlimited amount of devices all at the same time, so your entire household with a single subscription. And I've been working with Private Internet Access so long that I have an absolutely massive discount available to my viewers. Link in the description below. Get Private Internet Access today using my link. Save huge, protect your computers, access all the content that you've been paying for, and ensure that your internet is never censored. It just seems a little too perfect. Now, maybe it's all true. Maybe it's all true. And he was just, you know, a cop's kid, and he was a mega supporter. He was, from what I can tell, registered as a Republican. But again, that doesn't mean much. Speaking to NBC after the incident, a student who was part of a political roundtable with him revealed he harbored quote-unquote white supremacist views. Now, if this is another woke college student, simply wearing a Trump hat would be enough to have some wokey say that about you. So, you know, having some college kid say that just because he may have been a Trump supporter, that doesn't actually mean he had any, you know, of those particular views. We also are now finding out that he was kidnapped at a young age. There's a lot of weird stuff coming out. I'm not going to show any of the video or any of the incident stuff. But we do know now that, where is this? This says he promoted these views and spewed vitriol against black people. Report. Now, it's curious to me that he seemed to only target white people in this incident, but we have more anecdotes. I've seen no evidence of this. It seems like it could be a narrative. Apparently, he said that Rosa Parks was in the wrong and that black people were destroying his community. Again, he was also allegedly asked to leave a political roundtable club over quote-unquote hate speech. Again, basically our one rule was no bad guys from WW2. Colloquially speaking, you know a lot of high schoolers that say that refer to things as when, you know, colloquially speaking. He espoused so much of these far-right rhetoric to the point where we had to exercise that rule. Another classmate said Iker was vocal in their federal politics class, promoting his disturbing views about black people, as well as far-right conspiracy theories, such as former President Joe Biden was fraudulently elected. Again, all of this is wild hearsay. He may have been just a run-of-the-mill Trump supporter. I'm not seeing, these are just people saying things after the fact. I got in arguments with him in class over how gross the things he said were. I don't see any of it posted on social media. But it's awfully convenient. It's awfully convenient. Now, maybe it's all true. Maybe it's all true. Months before the incident, Eichner was quoted in FSU student paper, article about anti-Trump protests at the school, and was identified as a poli-sci major. These people are pretty entertaining, usually not for good reasons. See, he's talking about the protesters. I think it's too late. It's a little too late. Trump's already going to be inaugurated on January 20th. There's not much you can do unless you outright revolt. And I don't think anyone wants that. It sounds to me like he may be making fun of the protesters. I don't know. The article was later updated to say an earlier version of this article, quote from him, was removed by the decision of our editors. I don't know. If it's true, okay, maybe it's true. But there are also some other interesting things. He was kidnapped by his quote-unquote biological mother and fled to Norway amid bitter custody battle years before this incident. The biological mother apparently kidnapped him and fled to Norway amid a bitter custody battle a decade before the incident, court documents reveal. Annie Mary Eriksson took her then 11-year-old son to the Scandinavian nation in March 2015 in violation with a custody agreement that she had had with her father after telling the father that she was taking him to South Florida for spring break, according to a probable cause affidavit. So I don't know, what does that mean? Not much. Could it be, people are saying all sorts of stuff. Was he like MK'd? Was he groomed? I don't know. I don't know. I just, it's like, wow, how convenient. Chris Eichner only discovered his son had been kidnapped when the 11-year-old spilled the beans during a phone call with his dad. Erickson, who had custody rights, thought the agreement stipulated that he could not take him from the country without advance notification, and said that he would return the boy to the U.S. and his dad on March 27th, but never did so. Christopher Eichner then quickly became worried and alerted authorities, saying his son had, quote, developmental delays and special needs, which he feared would not be taken care of without access to his regular doctors. Affidavit later said that he was on medication for mental health issues, for several health and mental health issues, including a growth hormone disorder and ADHD. Well, there you go. So he has mental health issues. Does anybody at this point suspect that perhaps he was on SSRIs? Now, I don't know. He didn't say that he was or wasn't. He didn't say that, but here he's saying his 11-year-old had mental health issues. So, I mean, this guy probably was on some form of SSRIs. I don't know. But it would be basically about on brand. He had a hormone disorder, ADHD. They always say young boys have ADHD. They told my parents that I had ADHD, and I'm sure they wanted me to get on drugs. And then the next year I was in the gifted and talented program, and they wanted me to skip a grade. It's these teachers, I was a high energy kid. I was a class clown. These things were true. But they wanted to tell my parents, hey, he needs drugs. They never put me on any of that stuff. They never put me on any of that. And guess what? The next year they wanted me to skip a grade. That's a true story. The reason I didn't skip a grade is because I had a twin sister, and I think they wanted me to skip fourth grade, and or fifth grade, and skipping a grade would have been like, it would have created a huge problem basically because I would have been going to middle school a year before my sister, and I would have been probably socially outcast because I would have been so much younger than everybody else. I'm fine with my parents not having me skip a grade, and it never bothered me. But who knows what they have, who knows what would have happened if they would have crammed me on ADHD medicine and stuff like that, So this kid had mental health issues, which is basically a common thread with everybody who does this, I'm going to say that Big Pharma probably got him. That's what I'm guessing here. Mental health issues, all this kind of stuff seems to come out, after the fact. Crazy mom kidnaps him, political views revealed. We don't really know yet. I mean, yes, he was wearing a Trump hat. That doesn't mean anything. He could have just been trying to infiltrate. He could have been a psychopath. But one thing I 100% believe is that he had mental health issues. That is just too common not to, this is basically 100% of the scenario every time someone does this. Other dorks calling him a fascist. Again, people on the internet call me a fascist every day, and I'm basically still a liberal. So you never really know with these people. But we do know that he was probably on SSRIs. Big Pharma got him. And, I am not surprised in the least. Basically, every time this happens, we find out they were on some sort of mental health medicine. I think people need to really start investigating whatever connections might be going on with that. I think that's probably worth doing, right? I don't know. Let me know what you think in the comments.